This episode is made possible by New Masters Academy, the world's absolute #1 online art school in the entire universe. Click the link down below for a free 7-day trial. Thank you, New Masters Academy.
I am in your mind. I am in your...
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Honey and Absinthe After Hours podcast. We're your hosts. I'm Vincent, a background designer for the Hollywood animation industry.
And I'm Janet, the ex-Disney artist turned independent creator, and this is a podcast about all things art, business, and whatever we feel like.
Today we're going to talk about understanding Gen Z versus Millennials and why it matters to us artists.
But before we get into it, make sure to like, subscribe, jingle all our bells and buttons, because it really helps us out right there. Please and thank you.
Oh, yeah. Oh, hey, how's it going? You're looking mighty fine today. Ooh, it's the middle of summer. Ooh, ha. It's kind of hot out there.
It's hot.
If you have a dog, their paws are kind of hot. Ooh, kind of burning. So, you're looking great, by the way.
You're looking great. You're gonna have a great day, great week, because you are listening to this podcast on this fine Monday morning.
It's fine Monday morning. So, Janet?
Yes.
It took about 28 to 30 years, but we're finally old.
Yes. We are now no longer the youth. I feel like in the past year or so, I've realized that. The moment you realize that you're kind of considered old now, you're not the hip youngins anymore, is a little bit like, whoa.
Well, it's weird, man.
Yeah.
It's weird. As corny as it sounds, turning 30 was kind of funny feeling. There's a lot of things that I was just like, oh man, I'm 30 now. I shouldn't be doing this shit. But I'm like, I'll keep on doing it anyway. You know what I mean, 30-year-old. You know what I mean. And you still do it. I know you do. I watch you when you sleep at night.
Oh God. I've always been kind of interested in fashion. A lot more so when I was younger, and then the more I got to college, I had no money, so then I couldn't care about fashion anymore because I couldn't buy anything. But I've always been interested in it, and every few years I go shopping for clothes because I'm cheap that way. I don't.
Wait, hold on. You have to explain. Like, I've seen your pictures. Mm-hmm. Around the house. Mm-hmm. You know, you were never really, you were fashion conscious at a certain point, at a certain age.
Yeah.
But how did you view fashion when you were a young person? I didn't really think much of it. I didn't think I could look like how they do in the TV. I didn't think I could look as cool as Michael Jordan or Macaulay Culkin or whichever, Justin Timberlake at the time. You just look up to them and you go like, whoa, that is just like the peak of stardom.
Yeah, I just wanted to look like I wanted people to take me seriously. I think at a certain age, and I was like, okay, I need to start caring about this, because for the longest time I was like a nerd and I really didn't care. But I was athletic, so I you're kind of lucky sometimes when you don't struggle with weight issues, especially when you're younger, because then you can just wear anything and it just goes.
Yeah. So what was your typical get up when you were 12 or something? You're just typical Janet, classic get up, t-shirt and shorts probably.
Skinny jeans, and I really liked those chunky Vans skater shoes. Oh, I see. The ones with a lot of padding on it. When I was younger, it was really popular to have the bubbly shoe. Not the Converse, not the sleek Van shoe, the bubbly shoe. And then I remember I just liked for a while I liked the blazer.
Oh man, I had a huge blazer phase too.
Yeah.
It's kind of not cool to wear that, and I'm crossing my fingers it's gonna come back soon.
I don't know about that.
Oh man,
but yeah, I liked blazer. I liked business casual for some reason.
I think people view it as tacky now, though.
Yes.
Yeah.
Unless you're our age, and then it feels normal because it's like, oh, you're a working professional or something. But this was at like 18. Like, I was wearing business casual at 18, and I had like a whole
Me too, actually. Yeah.
phase where I was into like shoes, but like like the cross between business casual, like
Yeah.
boots and
Yeah.
and like heels.
I
And
have a story.
Yeah.
Yeah, like when I was growing up, I didn't give a shit. I would just wear all black shirt, black shorts, and then I'd be like, yeah, man, I listen to Linkin Park and all that stuff. But then I think I was in the 7th grade or 8th grade, and I saw, which means I was like 11 or 12. I saw Ocean's 11, and then George Clooney and Brad Pitt and just everybody, and the style and the swag. I was just like, oh man. And I was like, reaching that puberty age too. I was like, oh, I want to just look older than I look, older than I want to. I don't, and it's part of that, like, especially artistic, I don't know, tendency that we have, that like we don't want to be part of the group.
Yeah.
Like I don't want to be like one of those, like, one of the typical cool kids wearing Sean Johns and
like big baggy pants,
saggy pants and stuff. I wanted to look like, a little bit older than I was. I remember that. Yeah, that's crazy.
And like every few years, I have to update my wardrobe because after like 3 or 4 or 5 years, naturally these clothes should be have holes in them and stuff like that, and I don't buy clothes very often. So then I gradually see the styles changing, but then I am like stuck gravitating towards the thing that I liked when I was younger. And recently I realized I want to know what is the fashion of today, because that's kind of really important. I don't want to be someone who's like, we all know the person who's like stuck in the 80s or stuck in whatever age that they like gravitated to the most. So it's also really important in terms of just like, I mean, as an artist, you design characters. You want to, like, the clothing informs who a person is. If you want to write characters and stories, or if you just want to be capable of relating to people. So I started researching like what's popular with basically Gen Z, because I feel like millennials, we're old news.
How do the millennials view Gen Z, you think? How would you?
So my first inclination was a little like, I kind of hate this, but then I don't at the same time. And what I mean is, I look at a lot of their fashion and it's about being juvenile and youthful, which means it's not the classy blazer look that millennials are so known for. Like, we're all about like looking older than we actually were when we were younger, when we were 18 or whatever.
I think 500 Days of Summer is a huge like fashion influence movie for us millennials.
Yeah.
Everyone wanted to look like Zooey Deschanel or what's his face?
Joseph Gordon-Levitt.
Right.
And I saw this this TikTok that was on Pinterest or something because I was looking at fashion, and I think it was an older sister who is a millennial and a younger sister who's Gen Z, and they had like the caption, like labels for like date night or hanging out with the friends or like just casual like chilling loungewear or whatever. And every time a new label would pop up, they'll jump and then they'll magically have different outfits on. And it was to see the difference between what, like, for example, a millennial would wear for date night and what Gen Z would wear for date night. And it was really interesting to me, my interpretation of that, because I was like, I like both outfits, but I gravitate towards the millennial one. I think like that's my bias, yeah. And it always tends to be a little bit more it skews a little bit more classy and older. Whereas the like date night outfit for Gen Z is more like I'm here to have fun.
Right. Can you explain it for the audience so we can use our imagination?
For example, millennials will have a more like tight-fitting bodycon, like sucks you in kind of skirt. Whereas Gen Z has this flowy skater skirt. It's very youthful, and it's the silhouette of like, in a way, a schoolgirl uniform silhouette, where it's like very triangular and not like doesn't suck you in.
Yeah, it's like millennials are all about that figure.
Yeah,
and then it's all about that like the whoosh. I don't know how to explain it. When you draw it, I know how to draw
whoosh.
it.
The flowiness.
The flowiness. You know, like how like especially oh man, what anime was I watching? But I don't know, especially in anime where like a girl moves and then like you like spend so much time on making the animation of the skirt like look amazing. But it's that type of appeal, I think.
Yeah. And I thought that's really interesting that my personal preference is like stuck in this millennial sensibility. And I have an appreciation for the Gen Z look and the fashion, but to me it comes through my weird millennial lens, it comes across as a little bit juvenile and a little bit young. And what I notice is they like dressing younger than they actually are, whereas we like dressing older.
Right. Weird.
So for example, they like the skater skirts and the schoolgirl uniform stuff. They're very inspired by like 60s mod fashion, where it's very like straight silhouettes, or it's all about the bottoms, like big pants and then really really tight revealing tops. And their color palette, like if I were to assign millennial a color palette, it would be like classy deep jewel tones or like very like just black, white, grays and stuff like that. But like Gen Z is all I called it it's the Claire's palette, the Claire's color palette. It's like everything. It's like it should remind you of like children's toys. It's like red, blue,
told
green,
you like
yellow.
so like Pez, and like that like sugar candy stuff that you get in Halloween.
And the,
I see.
pastels and that kind of thing. And it was so jarring to me because I was like, my millennial sensibilities looks at that color palette, those shapes, those things. It feels so like overly youthful.
And it reminds you of like, that's like something that I would have wore when I was a kid. Therefore, I think it's not something I could ever pull off again. That's just how I psychologically view that fashion trend. It's like, you know, for when I was 6 years old. Yeah. But now it's coming back.
It's like, I mean, it's funny that you say it's for when I was 6 years old, because that's how I view it too. That it looks like 18 to 24-year-olds dressing as if they're 6 years old.
Yeah, because it's not like people, I think 18 in the 90s found the Claire's thing fashionable. That was for the kids.
Yeah.
I don't remember too much. Maybe it was like kind of grungy what the fashion was back then when we were like really kids.
I mean, it was like if you were emo. I mean, emo didn't even really technically exist at that point. It was more like scene.
Yeah,
it was scene. It was like e-girl before e-girl.
Yeah, man. When I saw e-girls come back, when I saw e-girls, I was like, oh, that's like a scene girl, but on the internet. Yeah, but anime inspired, but on the internet. Yeah, it's craziness.
And then there was like the business casual, nerdy, preppy look that I really liked. And then I'm sure there was like a grungy, like, I feel like hipster was really starting to come around that time. That like boho, like hobo chic look, that's what I call it. But yeah, when I see Gen Z, I go like, man, that's a really interesting difference. And one video, I guess, that I noticed that really piqued my interest about this topic was I watched this video by Mina Lee, and she does basically costuming analysis videos for movies.
Really detailed costume analysis, man.
She reads like interviews by the costume designers and all this stuff, and she was reviewing Cruella, and the video is titled "The Problem with Cruella's Costumes," and I was like, oh, that's interesting. I think it was the first video that I saw kind of about that movie. Like, I think it came out around right when everyone was kind of like doing movie reviews of it, so I watched it, and I was really shocked because apparently people kind of hate the costumes. And
fashion aficionados, you mean?
Yeah. Because if you don't already know, the new Cruella live action remake is, I think, takes place in the 1960s. So they use a lot of 60s music, and they're obviously their fashion has to then be kind of inspired by 60s fashion.
Like Sex Pistols was going on at the time. You know, punk, bobby pins through all sorts of orifices.
Yes.
So I guess they were trying to hearken to that.
Yes, kind of. But I don't want to spoil her video, and I don't really want to spoil Cruella, I guess.
Sure.
It's new enough that I'm not really allowed to spoil such a new movie. But it's fashion aficionados kind of hate the fashion because it's a Disney movie taking 60s anti-establishment fashion.
Like fuck the man.
Like
fashion.
punk fashion, and putting it into this very hyper corporate environment devoid of all of the meaning that punk fashion used to have. Like, anyone who was like that represents them, it feels a little wrong.
Shallow.
Yeah. Because the bobby pins thing and like the ripped jeans and that look is for like I feel like you can explain it better because you were into all of that when you were growing up.
Yeah, it was just accessible fashion.
Yeah.
That's truly what it is. It's just like, oh, this is how I'm going to express myself. Isn't that what fashion is all about?
Yeah, like it's teenagers being like, "F the man."
Yeah, I'm going to, like, this tattered shirt, I'm going to wear it. I'm going to put some bobby pins on it. See, that's my look.
Cool, yeah. And she basically says that the fashion is inspired by London's punk scene in the 60s, and they were very, like, it's kind of a political statement when you decide to wear and represent yourself in that way. Like, no matter what generation you're from, the clothing of the time kind of talks about you and what you represented at the time and what your beliefs are and what that says about society at the time. So like the 1950s housewife, and then like the way it transitions, it all has something to do with the way people are thinking and feeling. And I thought that's really interesting that Disney knew to incorporate this fake anti-establishment sentiment that they know Gen Z really, really likes. This should speak really really should speak to Gen Z really strongly, but they hate it. And what's interesting is part of her video, she's talking about fur. And
oh, this was interesting when you explained it to me.
Yeah, so Cruella is known for a certain thing in 101 Dalmatians.
She wants to use the Dalmatians for something.
Yes. But there's no fur in the movie. She doesn't wear fur, ever. And they completely took that out of the whole
Just as
story.
to what? To avoid trouble, you think?
Yeah. So Mina went and like looked at what the notes were, what the direction was for like the costume designing, and there's a specific note that says like they will not use fur for this movie. Like they don't want to. Specifically for like, We don't want to send a message that wearing fur is okay or whatever. That's such a millennial message. And then she said this really interesting thing that blew my mind, because I can't, as a millennial, I was like, oh, typical. Yeah. Bunch of Hollywood types going like, we're not gonna make Cruella wear fur, even though like that's kind of her thing. She said Gen Z doesn't care about that.
And I was like, no way.
Yeah.
Really?
She's like, the hot button thing for Gen Z is sustainability. They're actually okay with any skin, like leather, for example, and furs, if it's thrifted, if it's vintage. It's actually more of a faux pas to wear faux leather that's like made by fast fashion, like you mean recently, basically, because it's destroying the environment. It's plastic. So they're okay with faux fur and faux leather if it's vintage and thrifted, and they're okay with all kinds of leather and skins and furs and whatever, as long as it's thrifted, because of sustainability. And I was
imagine this video single-handedly just boosts the market.
Yeah. And I was like, it's a bunch of millennials making this movie who think that like we're doing good, and turns out they're completely tone deaf to Gen Z's priorities. And I was like, oh my god, Disney is not winning with their content lately. No matter how hard they try to pander to whoever. And I thought, man, all of this that I'm discovering, there's a really big difference between Gen Z and Millennial. Not only in their fashion, but in movies and music, and in their priorities, what they care about, because of the times we both generations grew up with, and how it's really important to understand that if we are going to serve Gen Z in the near future, because I really feel like they're just skipping over millennials and straight to Gen Z, and I think it's important. I mean, we should cater to the new generation, our arts and everything, and I think the people who do it the best are probably gonna win big monetarily, because when they started catering to the 80s kids, they won big, at least initially, for a good, I want to say like 10 years there. They won big by just going for that nostalgia. And I think if you can really boil down what Gen Z likes, like, you at least can empathize and relate and speak to them more effectively.
Yeah, like for example, if you're making a piece of art and your blind spot is this millennial stuff, like what their tastes are, then you're only speaking to people your age, which is, I assume, probably over 24 now.
Yeah,
I think that's the cutoff for being a millennial.
You have to be over 24.
And all those people are like, what, having kids? They're not even on Instagram anymore.
Yeah, like 25 and older. I mean, I feel like millennials age or go to the next phase in life a little bit slower than the previous generation. So like 25 to about 35 is, you're still living at home, trying to figure things out, making it work. It is what it is. We're young children. And then, yeah. So some have their life together. They have kids. They have those. But in general, we're just older. A lot of us have jobs, careers by now, family. But some of us are still children at heart, and I guess technically. But I think we need to talk about then, what are the differences between Gen Z and millennials besides fashion? And I think one of them is internet versus TV. Like, Gen Z grew up with the internet. They don't know a life where the internet doesn't exist. For us, we actually have a period of time there where we didn't really have internet up until for me, it was late elementary school. But for the most, I still remember having like a Walkman CD. I didn't have an MP3 player. Even MP3 players are like, what are those? We all listen to music on our phones now.
Yeah. So from our perspectives, it's like I remember the iPod came out when I was in 7th grade, which means I was like, I don't know, it was like a while ago. Then the iPod Shuffle, well, like there was something like Spotify was like totally just unfathomable. And so if you are of that age of Gen Z, you've grown up in a world and you were conscious in a world where like music is as available to you as like just like, you know, snap of your fingers. Whereas in us, it's like for me to find music, truly, I'd still have to like go to the freest way for me was to go to the library and burn the CDs from the library.
Yeah.
The kids think I'm literally burning CDs. They don't understand what burning a CD is. Like I'm literally copying CDs.
Yeah. I remember
That's how old
CDs
we
were
are.
expensive as a kid.
Man.
I remember, I think CDs that I really wanted, my parents didn't buy me anything. They were like, I think like $25 for like the hottest new CD. And I was like, please. And it would be, and because they would spend like $25 on a CD for me, that would be like the only music I listened to for
a long time.
And we grew up on TV. We grew up, instead of surfing the internet all day, every day, a lot of our time was spending watching TV reruns and
Saturday morning cartoons, after school cartoons, late night cartoons, you know, Simpsons, Family Guy, things like that.
I have been reading The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey. It is a fantastic business book on how to be a highly effective person. If you would like to listen to this audiobook and you don't have an Audible trial already, head over to audibletrial.com/the Honey and Absinthe podcast, where you will get 1 free audiobook. I recommend this one, or 2 free Audible original audiobooks. That's 3 audiobooks in total. That's audibletrial.com/the Honey and Absinthe podcast. I think the fact that we grew up differently, like millennials grew up with TV and Gen Z grew up with the internet, shaped us differently, literally, as people. What we like, what we value, how we consume entertainment and media.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of people listening right now is like, oh, what what's the difference? There's not much difference. Like what has happened that makes us so different? But a lot has happened.
A lot
has happened, like in terms of like what us millennials have experienced versus Gen Z who can't possibly relate to the things that have happened. But we'll get into it.
So one of the things that us millennials grew up with, that we find so normal, was the reality TV shows. Like, we grew up on
Survivor, Big Brother, American Idol, Last Comic Standing, Food Network shows.
We
Iron Chef.
like idolizing people for their talent, and we like, in a way, celebrities, because I would never see, like, for example, American Idol. These people who would win American Idol, I didn't see that as something I could attain. I saw them as like a character in this reality TV show that I could idolize because they're so talented. That is completely different from Gen Z.
How do you think they view people on the internet? Because they don't watch TV. I don't think Gen Z's...
No.
They don't care about TV.
They think about TV as in, like, what streaming service do you have?
Yeah.
Can I borrow it?
I watch TNT. What?
What is that? Yeah. Where can I watch that? On Netflix?
It's a channel. She's so old.
Gen Z, I think, values relatability because you can see anyone on YouTube, anyone on TikTok, and be like, oh, I have a friend like that, or I'm kind of like that, or like I want to be friends with them. I have the ability to meet them in person one day, and I really want to. I want to be best friends with them. Like they call each other sis and besties. Like I imagine a millennial, an old timer like me using those words. Cringe. Nope. But I think they value relatability, whereas millennials value idolization of celebrities and stuff like that. Like I don't think Gen Z idolizes celebrities per se. They idolize their favorite TikToker or YouTuber, but not in the same way. Like
like I want to be your buddy.
Yeah.
You could never be a celebrity's buddy.
Yeah.
Impossible.
Never. Yeah.
But to meet your favorite person at like, I don't know, YouTube convention or whatever, that's more attainable.
Yeah.
It's more possible.
And now that we have experienced both, us who grew up with reality TV can clearly tell that reality TV is fake. It's still packaged in this slick presentation and sold to you as entertainment. Whereas if you grew up on YouTube or TikTok and you are used to seeing like just literally reality TV, the literal version of, because you have just a person filming themselves, there's only so much acting involved. Even with, people who really are acting, it's not quite the same as like, I don't know, Jersey Shore.
Right.
Or something like that.
The Bachelorette.
So that's very clear to me that Gen Z actually doesn't mind this more rough around the edges, not presented and packaged beautifully, perfectly. Whereas millennials, that's the norm. Like we expect that. We expect things to be slick and well presented.
Or we look down on it.
If it's not, yeah.
Do you remember when you first started your MySpace? I remember.
Oh my god, I think it was late middle school.
I was 13 years old, and I was, I think I was 13. Yeah, I was 13 years old, and then I made one, because all my friends were on it, and we finally had internet for like a month, because like my parents would use the dial-up internet trial, like 30-day trial, and that was like my first instance of like, oh, I can get friends, followers, subscribers, whatever it is, acquiring people into your little social media, and then snooping into other people's stuff, like you have a new profile picture, ooh, what other pictures you got, all that stuff. And that was like a mind-blowing experience. And then like watching people watching the birth of internet drama of like, why aren't I in your top 5 friends on MySpace? We were top 5 friends for years, for months and months and months and months. Like what's going on here? That type of stuff, which I would later witness our uncles, parents, even grandparents at this point. That shit happens to them too at this point. But the craziest part about Gen Z is that they were born into this world. This is just normal for them. And like prior to being 14 years old, I remember what life was like. You go to your friend's house and you play Halo on like four player split screen, and then you order pizza and you drink a ton of soda, and then you just keep playing on all night until you pass out. That was the life. And now like Gen Z, like they're playing Minecraft together, but like all the way across the neighborhood, let's say even. And it's just like a different experience. I think us millennials are also about in-person experiences, just like what I said about video games. It's like that's what I miss the most, like couch co-op stuff. And just being able to like even playing Borderlands with you, for example, was a really nice experience of just like being with people and sharing a game. I miss that stuff. But like, I guess that's passé now. I guess everyone's all about like battle royale. Yeah. Whatever. Roguelike games, whatever. I'm too old for that shit.
Yeah, I noticed that we millennials, I mean, I feel like the generations before us already kind of go like, you guys don't hang out with each other. When you hang out, you're all on your phones. And I remember hearing that gripe a lot from older people growing up. But now that we're starting to become older, I'm looking at Gen Z, and they're even more like, they do not like hanging out with each other in person.
It's
They-
really weird.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Whereas we prefer to, like, if we're gonna hang out, I don't want to Skype with you. I want to see you and have dinner or coffee or whatever with you, with my friends and whatever. Or we like the hangout, the party and whatever. But I feel like Gen Z are so comfortable communicating on social media that it's a lot more common for them to have friends all over the world because their lives are on social media.
Have you made a friend who isn't from this country via pen pals?
No.
Whatever?
No.
Email?
I had a friend who was like ahead of her time back in the day. And she would tell me, I think around late high school, that she has friends like everywhere because she's like super like an internet person. And I was like, what? Aren't you scared of like they're
gonna find you.
Yeah, they're
I gotta find you.
the hot thing that they would tell us back in the day was like, the internet is scary. You don't know who you will meet.
Yeah.
They're gonna try to like kidnap you.
60 Minutes, you hear the stories, or whatever late night show, you hear the stories of like the internet predator and the
Yeah.
online chats, group chat stuff.
So be careful.
Ooh.
Don't talk to strangers.
Don't talk to strangers.
So I had that mentality of like, don't talk to strangers. And I was like, are you scared? And she's like, no. Now it's normal.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. I know it's normal now to have friends who you can't really see or you've met basically once, but like I can't relate to that, man. I feel like, to me, a proper friend is someone I can go to the movie with. You know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like that's what, like the internet people, I don't know who they are. They could be
Yeah.
anyone. They could be catfishing me. I don't know. Like catfish was a thing. Like catfish became such a big thing for like us in high school because that's around when everyone, like, stories kept coming out about people getting catfished in the news and stuff, and I was like, what? That's crazy. It's all like, they really tried to scare us. They really tried to scare us millennials into not liking the internet.
Well, the internet was so new and mysterious, but now it's just so normal.
Yeah.
It's normal to Gen Z. So, there's a lot of movies, right, about us, dumb millennials, but like the number one channel, the number one thing that, like, I think represents Gen Z at the moment is TikTok. Like it, hate it, whatever you feel about it, it's sort of like the hub of what the youngsters are doing, right?
Yeah.
And it has me thinking that, like, man, you know, there hasn't been any stories about, like, these kids, I mean, like, and their culture and their priorities. I mean, sure, like, maybe it's too early,
Yeah.
but, like, I think we're at a point now we have so much source material, like TikTok.
Yeah.
Like, we understand, like, the psychology of, like, I'm gonna do the song and dance in front of the phone because I want to become like Charlie D'Amelio.
Yeah.
Like, I don't care about Jennifer Lawrence.
Yeah.
Whatever, she's old news. It's like, it's basically like the Kardashians are old news now.
Yeah.
Everyone.
Charlie
The-
D'Amelio has her own Keeping Up with the Kardashians reality show
I
now.
think Charlie's show is gonna be the next Kardashian
It
show.
is, yeah.
And that's kind of like, wow. I remember, like, when the Kardashian show first started, and everyone groaning and going like, oh, this is so lame. And now there's, like, they've gone, you know, the way of the dodo, and now there's this new family, basically popular on an internet app. Like, who would have thunk? If you would have told yourself that when Kim and her family started, like, you know, rose to the peak of her fame, their fame, why would you believe that a young girl on a new social media app would dethrone the Kardashian dynasty?
Yeah, I would have never.
And would make them into old news?
Yeah, I would have never guessed it.
It's
When
crazy.
I saw the Charlie D'Amelio, the D'Amelio family Hulu
What's it called?
TV show, I don't know. I forgot.
The
But-
D'Amelios.
Yeah. When I saw that show, I was like, oh, that's why they canceled Keeping Up with the Kardashians. And then I was like, That is crazy. This girl blew up on TikTok and now she has a reality TV show about her life.
Yeah, man.
What? That's insane. But I think the reason why there really isn't that much representation for Gen Z right now.
I think people don't really understand them yet, but like I think we got into TikTok really early, and I think I don't think we. Oh, our younger siblings are Gen Z.
Yeah.
So actually, I think we do have at least somewhat of an authority on this.
Yeah, because unless you're a parent of a Gen Z, parents probably understand them fairly well.
Yeah.
There are a lot like parents who got famous on TikTok for being cool parents.
Yeah, doing the TikTok thing with their kids.
Accurately, yeah.
Going all the way.
All the way.
Really trying hard.
But I think if you're a millennial, it kind of makes sense to me why millennials are really tone deaf right now, because if you think about our age range, we are the ones making your TV shows and movies right now. We're in charge of that stuff. But a lot of us don't have children. A lot of us aren't. And if we do have children, I guess technically they're Gen Z, but they're not sentient yet.
Yeah, they're like baby
Yeah.
Gen Z. Probably late Gen Z at that point.
Yeah. So we don't understand Gen Z unless you have siblings who are, or if you're always around this age group, or you research them like Gary Vee does. And like, in order for millennials to think outside of ourselves, it's really hard. Like, it's near impossible.
Yeah. Millennials pretty self-centered too.
I mean, they both are.
I mean, yeah, I guess every generation.
But until you have kids, until you have people in your life that represent this generation, I don't think you understand them.
Right.
And I think that's the reason why, like, millennials are not going to make movies and TV shows about Gen Z. They don't know how. They don't know how to relate to them. They don't know what they care about. They attempt to. They will pander and they will try. But then it comes across really tone deaf and really, like, cringe millennial. And I think another reason why is Gen Z is kind of young. Their age bracket is basically someone who's under 24 years old. And not too many people under 24 have done anything of note to, like, and the only people I could point to right now are musicians, because that's the age demographic that you want your next pop star music sensation to be. So like Billie Eilish, Olivia Rodrigo, Benny, we found this new girl Wallace that we really like.
She's awesome.
And like these Gen Z is the musicians. Like they are represented by musicians. I don't even know if there's a Gen Z actor or actress who they can kind of like latch onto and relate to.
Right.
The closest person I can think of is, what was the girl's name who was in Edge of 17?
I don't remember her name.
Well, regardless, I feel like even she is like cusp millennial. Like she still is like part of our group of people. Like I don't think Gen Z looks at her and like, I want to be you.
Yeah, I mean, like it's so easy to point. That's Charli D'Amelio.
Yeah.
But like she's not really a celebrity. What is she, a dancer?
Yeah.
Like that. I don't think there's a single person in Hollywood that kind of is like the icon for the Gen Z, which is hilarious because the icon is an internet person.
Yeah.
Which says a lot about the priority of Gen Z, don't you think?
Yeah. I think it's really interesting that like they don't care that Charli D'Amelio isn't like on the big screen. She's just as to them, they know who she is. A lot of Gen Z, I don't think they can name an actor and actress's name that they really really like. If you just pointed to like we did when we would watch movies, we'd be like, oh, that's Jennifer Lawrence, that's Andrew Garfield, that's whatever. Like
the kids probably only know, oh, that's The Rock.
Yeah.
You know, like really big superstar names.
That's Spider-Man. Like they don't know the actor's name. They know the role they play, maybe.
Interesting.
So they don't. not invested like that. If anything, they're more invested in the music artists that they like so much. And I think because of this lack of representation for them, they're desperate for someone to represent them. They're desperate to have media and entertainment cater to them, just like we were when we were growing up. Like before, like things were like specifically marketed towards, I want to say, like 80s kids, like a little bit the generation before us, like Gen X. And for a long time I couldn't relate to a lot of movies and a lot of TV shows and a lot of stuff, and I was like, that's why I gravitated towards anime. When you're in that like 18 to 24 age bracket, like when things just don't speak to you for some reason,
you find anime,
you find something else.
Yeah, and that was our thing. One thing I've noticed that was really cool about Gen Z is that they're really into analog stuff, just like hand done old physical stuff. There's a lot of videos on YouTube if you're really into like making music, and like you look at product reviews and you look at all sorts of gear reviews, and you eventually stumble upon like a ton of group of young indie artists trying to like make a indie album with a 4-track cassette thing. Which, like, if you don't know what that is, it's a 4-track that can basically you put a cassette tape in there, like an audio tape in there, and then like it has 4 tracks. You could put like your bass, vocals, drums, everything, and you can have a little song. And that was like how people back in the day would create demos and stuff that like they would show to their bandmates, or they would show to a producer and go like, oh, I want to be like this. But like it was never seen as something as a professional like way to mix and master your musical product. But like these kids for some reason find this shit super fascinating, and like it's magical, like, ooh, the sound is going into the tape or something. Like they really dig this stuff. And I don't know, I think it's because they're born into this digital world that they like find this stuff, this just like stuff that we think is just old, archaic stuff. They think it's like alchemy or some sort of magic to like use these things that we think are that's just a cassette tape player. Like what's the big deal?
Yeah.
And like same with VHS, like lots of indie artists who are of that Gen Z age love that like VHS look, and now they're like getting wise and hipper, and they're trying to incorporate film. It's crazy. But like one thing's for sure, it's not like I don't think they really like the super slick commercial look.
Yeah, I don't think so. I think it's really interesting because you see it in things like photography as well. Like when they post Instagram photos, they love the vintage look. And I know millennials do too, but they're specifically about a very, very specific like film grain look, where it's like everything's all washed out in yellow and nostalgic in a way, but like they like this nostalgia that they never knew before. It's nostalgic to us because we grew up with some of that stuff.
It's their idea.
But that's not nostalgia for them because
they never
lived it. Yeah. Right. So how could it be nostalgic? But they like it's almost romanticized to them, how much they love film and Super 8 and vintage. Like I said, they love thrifting and they love sustainability. They love like all things old.
Yeah, it's like we would call back in the day when we were in college those people hipsters, right? But I don't think Gen Z are a bunch of hipsters. I just think like the fashion just lends itself to you thrifting. It's not like you can find like, so what's really popular, like big baggy pants, like those like skinny tops, and then for boys like big shirts, bucket hats. Are you gonna go to H&M and find that? I don't think so. You go straight to the vintage store, save a few bucks, and then you look hip in the process.
Yeah, because like the kitschy colors, it's part of it. It's part of that aesthetic. I think that's really fascinating that like these kids that grew up in such a digital age, they gravitate towards that. We're like we are like, a lot of millennials are violently against that. We like the digital art. We like the slick,
super crisp photography.
We like Photoshop, and we like everything to be like packaged perfectly. And yes, we have the hipsters, but as far as that went was like vinyl. Just collecting vinyl records.
Yeah, but no, the kids are like finding all sorts of stuff.
Everything,
like tape, records as well, but like all sorts of things. Like just things that we think are super archaic, and they just dig it. I don't understand.
So, outside of like movies, music, entertainment, I also wondered like what's their worldview like? Because I can say about our worldview as a millennial was pretty much shaped by two really, really, really big events.
I think every millennial has a real, like, can just remember when 9/11. I flubbed this so hard. How did I do this? I think every millennial can remember when 9/11 happened.
Yeah.
You know, that kind of makes you a millennial. I don't think your sister or my brother, our younger siblings, were even understood what was going on. They were way too young. But we were like, at least like cognizant and understood life when we saw that happen. And then like a few years later when the market crashed, and like especially I'm sure everyone's parents back in the day had like crazy money talk stuff, because the market's crashing and all these things, and these things shaped us. I mean, these things just like, you know, I would think about a lot, like my life versus like say your sister's life or my brother's life, and I would think like it's so easy for me to think like, oh yeah, 9/11, oh yeah, the market, like the housing market crash, like everyone knows that. But like there are people who don't understand that, weren't like affected by that, I would say even scarred by that, like so that doesn't really affect them. Therefore, that those events that happen in our lives, they don't affect the decisions of, you know, the average Gen Z person. And that's fascinating, because like it remains to be seen what will happen in a Gen Z person's life to affect what their decisions are, or how they approach, you know, life. But clearly there's this big fucking pandemic that just happened. Like imagine being like 13 or 14 years old, like during the pandemic. I
don't know.
Don't think I could have survived like being with my family for just locked in with them for a year and a half. Like I don't know like
I genuinely don't know what that does to a young person's psyche.
We will see. But 9/11 and the market crash, we think made millennials super risk averse.
I mean, describing how I felt after 9/11, I felt like I just wanted to be safe. Same thing with after the 2008 market crash. I was a little bit older then. I think I was a sophomore in high school, in 10th grade. And I knew, I think maybe 10th or 11th grade, so junior year, I remember taking AP comparative government, and I learned a whole lot about how the economy works and all that stuff. And I also, being child of my parents, I also knew like what was expected of me after high school, and I was scared. I was like, this means it's going to be really difficult for me to find a job by the time I graduate college. I knew that even as a little high schooler. I think people people our age didn't understand that until they graduated college. I looked ahead and I was like, this is not good. This is not good for the economy. This is not good for me. And all I wanted to, and there was nothing I could do about it as a, I think 14 or 15-year-old kid. I was like, what am I supposed to do? I just get good grades. Like I don't know what to do. I guess I'll deal with it when when I turn 18 or whatever. So all I felt was I want to be safe. I want a good stable job. That's all I want, because you hear on the news at the time that people who have had their careers for decades are losing their jobs and they can't find work, and it was really hard for them, and it's scary. Maybe it was hyperbolic. I don't know. I'm not sure if the news I was consuming as a young person was real or not back then. But I remember the news was scaring me, and I was like, well, I guess I have to work really, really hard then in order to survive and get a good job, work at a good company, be stable. That's all I wanted in life. And
you would never think, oh, I'm going to make a company. Oh, I'm going to invest in the internet. I'm going to be internet famous, whatever the heck being an internet famous personality. Well, that was not a thing when we were growing up.
Yeah, they kind of still looked down on.
Yeah.
Yeah, back in the day. Even though...
But no one would take a risk. You would never take a risk. You couldn't.
No.
You wouldn't be like, oh, I'm gonna make an art business. No way.
No, I thought that's why a lot of millennials think that you have to gain the experience through normal channels, like working in a company first before you dare go out and do it on your own. Which that's so backwards, but that was definitely, I think, where that comes from. That that's isn't that how you do it? Whereas now it's no, I think the idea of entrepreneurship is much more, people understand what it is a lot more now. There's no amount of time in any company that will help you. If you're an entrepreneur, you're an entrepreneur. But I think because Gen Z doesn't have these experiences, they didn't grow up with these experiences, they don't have that hang up. They're not as risk averse as millennials are. Yeah,
they're so cool with okay, I'm gonna be a Twitch streamer. Mm-hmm. Oh, okay, I'm gonna be a TikTok personality or whatever it is, YouTube personality, because it's you didn't have this incredibly scarring experience.
Yeah.
That kind of forced us to. I would never think I could live the gallery artist life, especially at that time. Mm-hmm. I was I needed to work in Hollywood or something, have a respectable job, because something like that could happen again, the market crash or something. But then the pandemic hit, and I don't know, how has the pandemic affected your life philosophically?
I was already on this trajectory before the pandemic, but it's made me a lot more I live the phrase YOLO, literally.
Yeah.
And I think people used to go, oh, you only live once, jokingly, as millennials always say it kind of jokingly. I mean it.
Yeah.
I think when I had the realization that I was wasting my life at Disney, I was I'm gonna die one day. I don't want this to be, I can die tomorrow. I don't want this to be all I have done in my life. So then I was so terrified of that I was I need to go do what I actually want to do, because life is unpredictable. You can lose it. You can lose people that you love at any time. And I wonder if this pandemic has made Gen Z, who already is kind of not risk averse at all, in my opinion, compared to us, even more yeah, I'm gonna go do what I want now. And I wonder if they're we're gonna this is gonna cause a whole generation of crazy entrepreneurial types from the Gen Z people.
Or maybe just good content from the Gen Z
Yeah.
people. Yeah, when we were doing the show notes, I was thinking oh, I wonder if this pandemic has affected the Zoomers and made them like afraid to do things and just stay at home and all that stuff. But I don't know. I think for me, when the pandemic was happening, I was thinking it's the same exact thing. Like my whole idea of like I'm gonna die was heightened to 11 because you know it was highlighted that like life is life. And like the amazing thing, because it's like if you were to tell us when we were like 12 or 14 or whatever that like one day there will be a pandemic and the world will be forced to lock down for about a year and a half, I would be like, bullshit, no way. Like, no way. That's total fantasy TV stuff. But like Gen Z got to like witness, you know, normal life just turned upside down. Like their parents are working from home now. You know, they're doing school from home now. You're not allowed to go outside. All of a sudden, you know, your parents' job, your sister's job, your brother's job is like in hot water because the pandemic has affected it in some way. And then you as a young person suddenly realize, you know, this bullshit about like, you know, going to school and going to college and then getting a good job. It's a bunch of bullshit. Because at the end of the day, a fucking thing like a pandemic can happen and everything could just be fucked anyway. So why spend my life on bullshit I don't like to do? And why don't I just do the bullshit I like? And I wonder if that's what they're thinking. I mean, who knows? Like, oh, maybe these kids, they just want to enjoy life and they're not thinking that far ahead. But I don't know. I think I would have had that thought in you know, deep in that quarantine year. I would have had a thought like that. I'd be like, man, this going to school bullshit. You see, like, what did that school do for you? You're like in hot water now.
Yeah.
It didn't help you during the pandemic.
Help you do anything. I also think that because the age demographic of Gen Z, it was like, let's just say 18 to 24 right now. They're in that age where like nothing has hurt you yet. You haven't gotten disappointed by any failures or chased any dreams and then gotten let down yet. Like, you're so hopeful, and in a lot of ways you're really like egotistical and arrogant, and like that's what youth is. And like combined with this like YOLO attitude inspired by the pandemic, at least that's what we're assuming, I feel like they're gonna like go and do whatever it is they're gonna do
and do amazing stuff. In fact, I think millennials will work for a lot of Gen Z people probably 15 years down the line.
Probably. But so there's this thing that I wanted to bring up about Gen Z earlier that I forgot. Gen Z though, I noticed this thing about them that I think is really strange. It's similar to the whole, they really like physical vintage things because it's nostalgic, but then it's nostalgia that they never experienced before. They kind of romanticize revolution and change and that kind of thing. Like they really want to be part of a movement is what I noticed. And it's very strange to me because I don't think millennials are like that at all.
Yeah, we grew up, we weren't encouraged to be political. In fact, politics was boring.
I think that's part of it, that like celebrities and their favorite music artists, like it's in everything, but like it's not like they understand what is being said. They only know their favorite rap artist or whatever is saying it, and it's cool to say certain things. For example, sustainability and being caring of the environment and climate change. They don't realize when they say that that's a political statement. They just know you get like points, social points for saying that.
Likes.
And like with a lot of movements that are going on right now, they don't realize it is attached to politics. They just think it's, oh yeah, this is cool, that is cool, I'm gonna say that. But it's not like they understand what side. They didn't do any research. They don't know who supports what and what the ramifications of being for or against certain things are. It's just some like sold to them. Like a lot of things were sold to us growing up. And I think that is a really...
We will find those weapons of mass destruction. We will find them. We will find them.
We never found them.
We will find them. One day we will find them.
And yeah, I think that's interesting. I think if we're gonna make predictions about Gen Z, I think one side of them will probably become very entrepreneurial, very like, I'm gonna go do what I want. I have these big dreams. I'm gonna go do it. I think another side is gonna use all that passion for social revolution, movement, that kind of stuff. Because
why? Because they have nothing else going on for themselves?
They romanticize it.
They're just like really into it.
Yeah, they're like strangely really into it. I think
I can't relate to that. I don't, man. I guess it was because, like, I don't know, when 9/11 happened when I was like 9 or 10. So, like, I don't know, there wasn't really much going on socially in terms of revolution. There was just a lot of like, holy shit.
Yeah, but I mean, like, the closest thing that I can remember feeling the same way about like being really into change was when I was 16 at the time when Obama got elected for the first time.
Oh, change.
Yeah, change.
That branding thing. Right.
And that, I don't know if anyone else can remember or even can relate, because it's specifically like you have to have been in high school at the time. Yeah. All the high schoolers were really, really into Obama because of the idea of change. Like,
si se puede,
yeah,
all that stuff. Yeah.
Like, we were really into this, like, it that idea, this romantic idea of revolution speaks towards the 18 to 24 crowd.
So it's like that heightened to impossible numbers because
even more
it's now.
Yeah,
right.
Even more because it's in everything. It's in every media, everything. And then after that year where he won, that feeling subsided. The thing is, I feel that feeling in Gen Z every day. Like, it doesn't subside, and I think it's just part of the generation, and I think that's really like interesting.
Well, I mean, like, our entertainment, everything is highly politicized. So whatever they're consuming is highly politicized. Yeah. So they become highly politicized. Yeah. Highly politicized people.
Whereas I think after, like, I like to say that, like, you know, after that, a lot of people went back to sleep. We all, as I was 16, I didn't really have a say. I couldn't vote. So, like, you know, you just, oh, it's the big topic of the day, our first black president. And then after that, you're just kind of like, I just go about my life, go to college, whatever. Like, you don't really pay attention. Yeah, I think that's an interesting difference in Gen Z versus Millennial. I think there's some Millennials that are like super politically active, but it's not like this weird romanticization of it, because we don't romanticize it that much, partly because of 9/11, I think. Partly because, like, revolution's scary. Change, like, political stuff is scary. As a kid, you think that.
Yeah, I guess so. Like, politics and all that stuff has when I think back to when I was a kid, it had such a negative connotation of like, oh, bombings, war, terrorist attacks. You know, like it felt like. And then, like, the media was pandering to that time, like 24 and all this stuff. Yeah. Oh man.
So I don't think we grew up with a positive image of revolution at all.
Interesting.
Yeah. So yeah, I don't know. You let us know if you are Gen Z. I would love to know your thoughts of like how you think the pandemic is going to affect you long term.
Yeah.
Like, what do you think you're going to do now that you wouldn't have pre-pandemic in your life?
Has it helped you as a young person realize your finite mortality existence? Yeah. Or has it made you feel like, oh, I need to, I don't know, maybe you're more health conscious now. Who knows? I don't know. Who knows how this is, we will see. But let us know in the comments how this has affected you. But now we will recommend something. Janet, what do you have to recommend?
I recommend Mina Lee's video that I talked about at the beginning of the podcast episode. It's titled "The Problem with Cruella's Costumes."
Very well researched video, yes.
Very cool. I love all her videos. I highly recommend it if you're into fashion. If you're into costume design in movies, if you're into the historical nature of fashion in general.
What do you like most about her videos?
I like how thoroughly researched they are. She did a recent one on Studio Ghibli. And she was specifically talking about Spirited Away and Princess Mononoke, and she really did her research. She goes into how Miyazaki always based his characters and his costuming on historical things, but they're all from different time periods, so when you put them all together in one place and time, it feels like fantasy. And I don't think someone who isn't aware of what is normal and what is not normal in Japanese clothing would know that. Like, for example, I didn't know that like certain periods of time in Japan, they didn't wear this kind of clothing. When I was a kid, I thought Spirited Away was just like, a Japanese movie that had Japanese clothes in it. Or actually, Ashitaka is modeled off of a Chinese indigenous people. And because Miyazaki wanted to make Ashitaka seem foreign. And like in Spirited Away, the women don't actually wear those bathhouse robes typically. It's kind of considered indecent, and it like a lot of people have thoughts and opinions about what that means. Like almost like Kubrick-esque, like not conspiratorial, but like theories about what it means. And like she does all that research, and I think that's really cool.
Neat.
Yeah. So make sure to like, subscribe, jingle all our bells and buttons for more videos if you'd like to support this channel and help me keep the lights on. Head over to honeyandabsinthe.com to buy some merch. It helps us out. Binge these episodes over here for all our other episodes, and we will see you next time.
Bye-bye.